So candid photography is perhaps one of my more favorite forms of photography. I think most of my best photos have come from candid moments and things like that. And I kind of want to share with you guys how I personally perceive and approach taking candid photos. Understand that I am no professional in this regard. I just want to share with you guys my personal experiences and what I like to think about when I'm approaching certain situations and things like that. So let's go ahead and get started by asking the question, what is candid photography? Well, candid photography is a pretty broad definition. It defines a lot of different things in photography, like street photography, journalism, and other things like that. But for the most part, it's just taking a photo in the moment, not having any planned scene or anything like that, and also not necessarily being noticed by your subject if you're doing portrait work. It's supposed to be very natural, and the photos are supposed to come out very natural, very in the moment. It can encompass a wide variety of things. As long as it's candid, then it's a candid photograph. So one of the primary things I think about when I want to take candid photos, or I'm thinking about taking candid photos, is understanding that I am an observer. I'm not the person who sets up the shot. I don't set the scene. I don't get all the lighting like this, like that. I'm not posing people. I'm just merely part of the scene, chilling, waiting, enjoying the moment, and then taking the picture when it kind of comes to me or when the scene kind of sets itself. So understanding you're an observer and you are just like almost like a fly on the wall is very important when getting candid shots, because when you're taking candid shots, you don't want to be seen and you don't want to be noticed that you are taking the picture because any interference of that might ruin the photograph, or you might actually interfere with the scene, you know what I mean? So you are a fly on the wall, you're an observer. And I think this kind of came to me more naturally because I'm generally the type of person to be kind of an observer or just kind of on the sidelines of the room in hangouts or parties or whatever happens to be anyways. So I think it kind of fits in well with how I carry myself across the room. For you, if you're more used to being interactive or being part of the scene or stuff like that, you're gonna have to realize that you might have to take a step back and just watch a little bit, because a lot of good photographs come from just waiting for the right moment and taking the photo when you are there. The next thing I think about, or would recommend at least as sort of a tip or something like that, is to really know your camera. Pick one camera, pick one lens, focal length or whatever. Don't get a zoom lens. I would recommend a prime lens because a zoom lens might have you thinking too much about different settings and stuff like that. But really understand your camera. And this can go for if you're shooting with a full frame or a film or digital, anything like that, even just an iPhone. Really understand what sets the frame and what sets kind of the shot you want. So the really important part is knowing this and having your settings planned out beforehand. So anytime you enter a room, maybe just slightly change some settings really quick to match kind of the exposure or lighting of the room, and then just like kind of go with that. But the reason why I recommend knowing your camera very well is because candid photography is kind of in the moment. You don't have a lot of time to capture these moments. So if you're fiddling with your camera and you're fiddling with your exposure and settings like this, it can actually cause you to miss a lot of these shots. And you don't get a lot of opportunities for these shots. So this can be very detrimental to the amount of good photographs you kind of come out with, you know what I mean? So that's a very important thing, is to know your camera, because the better you know your camera and the better you know the type of shots you want in terms of exposure and settings like that, the less fiddling you have to do with it. So that's another recommendation I would have for you guys. Another thing I like to think about when I'm trying to get candid photos is having patience. Really try to bring this one home, because patience is extremely important, especially when it comes to candid photography. Mainly because a lot of the times you are not going to get good photos. Most of the photos I take are bad photos, and a lot of times I come back with nothing. You know what I mean? So having patience is really important, because you can't expect to go out and then just like get all the best photos that you want just because you're doing this kind of candid photography type thing. Most of the times, the pictures you're aiming for or the pictures you're thinking about aren't going to happen. And you kind of just have to be patient, understanding that that is kind of part of the game. You know what I mean? You are bringing a camera with you out on your daily life, hanging out with friends, maybe going out with family, maybe going on camping trips, lifestyle stuff like that. And you can't force those things to happen. You can't force these epic moments to happen. So really being patient and waiting for those things to come to you and waiting for the scene to set itself and seeing that in the moment is what will actually get you the better shots. And this is something I didn't entirely understand until later, because I would take so many photos and stuff like that and try and force candid moments, but that's just not how it works. And understanding this will allow you to kind of go with the flow a little bit more, you know what I mean? And this kind of brings me into the next point, and that is to not have any expectations of the scene. I think when people go out trying to take candid photos, they already have kind of an image in their mind, and maybe they saw something online or they see something that really inspires them and they're like, wow, I want to take a picture just like that. Well, that sets up an expectation. And when you have an expectation and you go out and trying to get photos just like that, you're going to be disappointed. That's just the fact of the matter, is that a lot of the times you can't create that exact scene, especially if you go to the same place. Maybe the lighting is going to be different, maybe the time is going to be different, time of day, and maybe the camera is going to be different. There's too many variables that are outside of your control, especially with candid photography, that it can set yourself up for failure, especially if you are setting up expectations. Does that make sense? So I would kind of take it kind of on the fly. It's like you're winging it. You're going out and you trying to go to grasp or feel for the scene, and you're also trying to enjoy the moment as well. So kind of carrying yourself more loosely is a better way of dealing with candid photography, because then you're not setting yourself up for failure, like I said earlier, and you're also not creating an expected scene. The best part, and my favorite part about candid photography, is that when you get an image, it looks unlike anything that you ever planned for. You know what I mean? You're not setting up the scene, and it has a very natural feel to it, and I think that's one of the best surprising factors of it. It's almost like shooting film. You're taking a picture and then you see it like months later and then you're like, wow, that's awesome. You know, it's like completely unplanned, completely spontaneous, completely in the moment. It's probably one of the best ways to enjoy photography. So my final thought or approach or tip on candid photography is understanding the fact that subjects will notice you. Regardless of how discreet you are and how quiet you are or how fly on a wall-y you are in the room, subjects will eventually notice you. Because think about it, like, how often do you guys notice people taking pictures of you personally? For me, it's very obvious, especially when someone's holding a camera when they're taking a shot and things like that. So it can be very hard to be discreet if you are the photographer yourself. But just understanding that people will notice you and then understanding how to kind of play it off is a very important part, especially when taking photographs. And this is a bit easier, of course, if you know the person. If it's a stranger, it might be a little more awkward, but understanding that, okay, they've noticed me and now I can kind of play it off by asking them to pose or doing something like that. And understanding that most people are more friendly or on the friendlier side of these things can actually allow you to scrape away with a lot of good photos. I think oftentimes when I would go out thinking about getting candid photos, I'm so focused on getting the photo to be candid that I miss a lot of opportunities to pose people and get more structured shots and structured photography because I'm so focused on, oh, it has to be in the moment, it has to be in the moment, where in most cases it doesn't have to be. If someone notices you taking a photo of them, it's a perfect opportunity to ask them to do something or to pose them in a certain way to get a better shot or something like that. Like, just because you want to take candid photos doesn't mean you have to block off all other forms of photography, you know what I mean? Just because a photo is candid doesn't mean it's good, and just because a photo is not candid doesn't mean it's bad. So being flexible in a lot of these situations can work towards your benefits, especially when you're trying to just get good shots in general. So that is just something to think about. Something I've been working on as well is I can have a lot of flexibility in the situation, even if one of my friends notices me trying to take a picture of them. It's not a detriment to the photo at all. Anyways, those are just a few things I like to think about when I'm trying to get candid photos or when I'm taking candid photos. Hopefully this helped you guys out as far as like the kind of mindset goes for it. I think that's more or less the main thing to focus on. The rest of it would just be knowing your camera and understanding what kind of style of photography you like to take, but that's something else we can fill in a later video. But if you have any questions, thoughts, or maybe tips for other people on how you like to take candid photos, please leave them down in the comment section below. I believe it'll be helpful for me as well and a lot of other people. And also, if you guys enjoyed this video, please do like the video and subscribe down below for more photography type videos. I will be seeing you guys next week with another video. Thanks for watching, guys. Peace.